Here's Wednesday, the 10th of February, and today we're looking at, can I use my senses to create atmosphere? So in our session description, we're going to write on Friday, we really want to recreate some of that atmosphere of that original video. And the way we can do that is by using all of our senses. Often though, we're going to use a lot of adjectives too. So just to check out on that, adjectives are describing words. So can you find the adjectives in these sentences? So if you find a word you think is an adjective, there must also be a noun somewhere that it's describing, or a pronoun that it's describing somewhere. So if you can't work out what this word tells you more about or what it's describing, then it probably isn't an adjective. So can you find the describing words, the adjectives in these sentences? Okay, so there's different amounts in each one. So the first sentence there, huge and iron are both adjectives. They're describing the gate. And then dark and shadowy are both adjectives. They're describing the forest. Second one's only got one adjective in, wooden. That's describing the doll. And then the last one is cold and dark. That's describing the pronoun it, really. It's describing how it was getting, cold and dark. And then black is describing the clouds. So they are your adjectives in those. Hopefully you found all of those. Okay, so before we can start using our senses to create atmosphere, we need to remember what our 5 senses are. So really quickly, maybe you want to pause the video, maybe you know straight away, what are our 5 senses? Okay, so the 5 senses we need to use are these ones. So we've got sight, we've got touch, we've got hearing, we've got taste, and we've got smell. One of the ones that's kind of not missed out, but is really important, is kind of covered under touch. Often you think of kind of feeling or touch as just feeling like, oh, are things smooth, are things rough? But I think you really need to develop this use of feeling as a sense. So it's not just like rough or smooth, it's sort of like hot or cold. It's also sort of maybe how you feel inside. It also kind of links a little bit to emotions and things like that. So we'll have a look at that as well. So don't think of it just as things that you actually physically touch. There are other ways of looking at feeling. And often what people do when they're writing is they tend to focus, understandably, far too much on what people can see. As humans, we are primarily kind of visual people. And so we kind of focus when you're describing on what you can see all of the time. And we don't kind of include these other senses. And some are harder to include than others, I understand that. But we kind of got to get away from just using what you can see, because it doesn't create a great atmosphere if that's all you do. So I've kind of put these senses in order here of kind of the ones you'll probably use in your setting description. So seeing is probably the one. Sight, what you can see, is probably the one you're going to use most, I would have thought. And then after that, feeling, how you're feeling, what you can sense around you. Then you've got hearing. You'll probably use that quite a lot. And the bottom 2, sort of smell and taste, are a little bit harder to get in. You don't often, when you're wandering around, you don't often sort of taste loads of things on the air, but you can include a few things on there. We'll have a look at that. So what I want you to do is just to divide your page up. So you've got like 5 sections here, one for each sense. And just want you to put some ideas in. You're welcome to watch the video again anytime you like. And obviously, a lot of these ideas might be very similar to the ones you came up with on Monday when you were making notes, and that's absolutely fine. So what should happen is, as you're noting down ideas, and I'll do it with you as well, as you're noting down the ideas, you should get probably some from Monday, and maybe some from watching the video again, and some completely new ones. And that's how we really create a huge bank of ideas and inspiration, because we use the ones we've already got sometimes, but then we also add on to them. So I'm just going to have a go at doing this. So this is what I would do. This is what I'd like you to do. So let's start with sight. And I just want you to think of one thing that you might see. So let's have, for example, a pair of rusty iron gates. I think it was definitely one of those in the video. So we've got a pair of rusty iron gates. That's just something I'm going to see. And then in my next box, I'm now going to think, I'll just do one idea in each box at the moment. So now in my next box, I'm I'm going to do what I can feel. So I'm not just going to do like what I can touch, like all rough bark of a tree. I'm going to think about how I might feel. So I might have the cold night air wrapping around me or wrapped around me. So I'm thinking about that. So I've got the cold there because I think it will be really cold as well. Then I'm going to go to my third box. So my third box just going to be something I can hear. So I mean, it makes sense. Let's have the sighing of the wind through the trees. Let's have that. So that's what I can hear, the sort of wind whistling through the trees or howling through the trees. I've got kind of sighing through the trees, make it seem a bit more real, like it's a person almost. And then this gets a little bit more tricky. What can I smell? Well, I think as we kind of walking along, it's kind of like wet, damp earth. So I'm going to put wet, soggy earth. Wet soggy, because that's what you can smell. Wet soggy earth in the rain. So as you know, when the rain comes down, you can kind of smell the smell of that rain on the wet earth. I think that's going to happen there. I'm not sure if it was raining in the video, to be fair, but I can add that on. I can use a bit of I can add a bit of stuff in because obviously it's my set description. It's not entirely based. It's not exactly what the video is. Okay, so now we've got taste. Taste is difficult. You kind of think, well, what could you imagine tasting? Maybe like sometimes, you know, if it's smoky in the air, you get that kind of smoke in the back of your throat. So I'm going to put the bitter taste of wood smoke on the air. They didn't want me to have wood smoke, it's one word, so I'll make it two. The bitter taste of wood smoke on the air. Perfect. So now I've got one thing for each one. So one thing I can see, one thing I can feel, one thing I can hear, one thing I can smell, one thing I can taste. So now what I'm going to do is going to put those things together in a paragraph. So that's what I want you to do as well. So you'll have 5 kind of bits of your sentence, and just so you should have a little paragraph just describing a little bit more, like we did yesterday with the verbs. But this time I'm going to make sure we're using all of our sentences, and I'm going to do them in order. So I've got a pair of rusty iron gates, I believe I put. So I can't just put that. It's not a full sentence. So I'm going to put up ahead of me. I'll say where they are. Up ahead of me, comma, because that's a fronted adverbial. A pair of rusty iron gates stood slightly open. There you go. That's my sentence. Now I'm going to go on to the next one, which is what I could feel. And that was the cold night air wrapped around me. So I'm going to put, as the cold night air wrapped around me, because I've started with as, I need to finish that sentence. So comma, as the cold night air wrapped around me, we'll move on to hear what I can hear, the sighing of the wind through the trees. I heard the sighing. Oh, I want to add something in there. How can I describe? I'm going to say the mournful, like it's really sad. I heard the mournful sighing of the wind through the trees. Full stop. So that's my second sentence. So now I've got left just 2 things: smelling the wet, soggy earth in the rain, the bitter taste of wood smoke on the air. So I'm going to put them in that order. So how could I say that? My feet, because I'm thinking about the mud, I'm thinking about the earth, and it's weird to say it smelled of wet, soggy earth. So I'm going to describe the earth first. My feet were clogged with mud, and I could smell the damp. What did I put it as? The wet, soggy, the damp, soggy earth in the rain. Full stop. And my last one is going to be about that taste of wood smoke in the air. So I'm going to put as I walk towards the gates, I've already got as. So when I reached the gates, the bitter taste of wood smoke hit the back of my throat. There you go. Full stop. So that's my paragraph. So I've included all of my senses there. I know I've done it all because I planned them all out on here. So when I've put them together, I know I've got a really descriptive paragraph that's including all my senses. So I've got up ahead of me, a pair of rusty iron gates stood slightly open. As the cold night air wrapped around me, I heard the mournful sighing of the wind through the trees. My feet were clogged with mud, and I could smell the damp, soggy earth in the rain. When I reached the gates, the bitter taste of wood smoke hit the back of my throat. So that's my little paragraph. That's what I want you to do. And so have a go at your 5 things. So put 1 in each box and then have a go at putting that into a short paragraph. Once you've done that, I just want you to come back to your boxes and add in as many things as you can. So just add in a few more ideas for each box so you've got more than one. Now, again, a lot of these will come from those notes you made on Monday. That's absolutely fine. And some of them will be new ideas, and some of them will be ideas which you've stolen off me, and that's great. It's good to get a mix of both. And you might be thinking, "Oh, do I have to rewrite them? Like, if they're the same ideas, why don't I just keep the ideas from Monday? Why do I rewrite them?" And I think it's quite important to rewrite them, mainly because if you rewrite them, you often change them a little bit in your head, and you change them very slightly, like I did in my paragraph. I changed it from wet earth to damp earth. And I just think as you rewrite it, you're not going to exactly the same. So you have lots of different versions of it. And the more it goes through your head, the more you write it, the more you think about it, the more it will sort of embed itself in your head. So it'll always sort of be there. You'll remember it much better. So it's kind of worth doing it. So I'm going to go from ideas. You can steal any of them you like, but just add a few more into your boxes on your page. You've got loads of them to be finishing off with. So I've got what I can see, the winding stone path leading up the hill. I've got wind swept. That means pushed over by the wind. Bushes on either side of the path. I've got lights glimmering far off in the distance. What I can feel, I've got the cold night air, like I said. I've got a wave of sadness washes over me. So that's also emotionally how I'm feeling. My heart beating faster, my pulse racing, so feeling a bit scared. The prickle of sweat break out of my forehead. That's again something you might be feeling because you're a little bit scared. What I can hear, the shriek of birds circling overhead, the rustle of dry leaves in the wind, the heavy sighing of the wind around the ruined stone walls. Do you see how when I rewrote it, I'd still had the sighing of the wind, but I've got it around the stone walls as opposed to the trees because I forgot that I said trees. So rewriting it means I just get slightly different ideas, which may or may not be better, but the more ideas you've got is definitely better. What can I smell? The damp, earthy smell of rotting wood. I've got the musty smell of unopened rooms left abandoned. Maybe the distant smell of wood smoke on the night air. And then taste, I've got the bitter taste of smoke there. I've got a taste of fear in the back of my throat, or a salty taste of sweat running into my mouth. It is hard to think of things you can taste, but if you can get a couple of them in there, it's going to work really well. So I'll leave this on here so you can pause, steal some of mine, use some of yours. So hopefully you've got as many ideas as I have here, and that'll put you in really good stead for Friday.